Hi. Well, we're about to do something different. Yes, I know we're always doing something different at Rayid these days, and I think that's probably going to continue. I've had a lot of interest in the last few years, the last 10 or 20 years, in the concept of cycles and seasons and how it works. In the last 3 or 4 years, I've been actively applying it on myself, and I apologize for not having done it better sooner because had I known the usefulness and the value of it, I would have advocated it sooner. So you've heard about how the times of the day and the cycles and seasons of the year have a use. But so far, the thing I'm most excited about is the potential use of the equinox. And as I get into the whole process, it seems that the equinox is an extraordinary place for us to explore together. Normally, I like to experience something myself more thoroughly for a while before engaging other people. But I think that the times on the planet are such that we would start to do something extraordinary together. I think it's a time to do things together. And we're going to ideally do the equinox together. Why the equinox? Well, for me, the equinox is a specific time period on Earth when every human being on Earth and all of the species of the Earth are all simultaneously doing the same thing at the same time. By that, I mean the light on the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, the day length, the nighttime and the daytime, are exactly equal. So, in this moment of planetary equality, all people, all species, plants and animals, they're all simultaneously doing the same thing equally. Now, I know that may sound a little strange, but it means literally everybody on earth and every living thing is simultaneously doing the same thing, whether or not they even know it. They're at a point where there is an equality, an equinox. There's an equinox of how that energy works. Now, for me, that's a planetary wide. And why that's so important is that when we start to do things on a global scale, it is inclusive of a broader number of people and situations. So the use of planetary forces of the Earth to simultaneously do something. And I would like to suggest to you what you might do. And oh, by the way, I'm inviting you to do anything you want to do on the equinox and report back. Because then I'm going to put together the best things we can find from people's experiences. And of course, I have a few suggestions about what we might do on the equinox. Now, this graphic that you see, it's a person, and the bottom part is winter, spring, summer, and fall. It's a cycle of a season. And what you notice is that winter comes into spring at the spring equinox. Then it goes up at the top, it is solstice, it comes back around again, and it comes into the equinox in the autumn. So the experience of being able to have a cycle of solstices and equinoxes, the equinox is right there at the horizontal level of the family tree. Now, I know that's an unusual way of looking at it, but the winter has to do with, for me, three grandfathers from the mother's side of the family. Then in the spring equinox, it meets the three grandfathers on the father's side of the family, and the ascending male day length continues to the summer equinox. And then for 3 months, we have the summer months coming down to the autumn equinox, where the grandmothers of the father's side meet the grandmothers of the mother's side. It's all about family. It's all about the unity of the family tree and its capacity to circulate. Now, notice that it's right there at the shoulder blades in the back and the heart in the front. It's right there in the middle. And this is somewhat of a vertical cross. This is where I like to see the molecule of laminin that I'll show you in a moment, of how it merges right there. I just get the really good feeling that something powerfully physical, something powerfully miraculous, something powerfully mysterious is available to us on the equinox. So I'm going to explore it, but I'm explaining about how and why I'm doing it. So if you're interested in doing that, I think it's possible during that window, and I don't know how large the boundaries of the window might be. So there is a specific hour, moment, an exact moment, minute of the equinox all over the earth. Everybody has it at the exact moment. Now, if it's 4 hours before, 4 hours after, that may be a little broad. But for me, so far, it has to do with maybe a 90-minute window where it's possible to be able to do, advocate, learn, feel, explore, receive, send. I'm not entirely sure of the parameters of all the things that are possible. But theoretically, this is what I'm believing is possible for now. That the human being basically has 3 bodies: a physical body, a spirit body, and also a soul. So at the equinox, the spirit body is particularly open, and I can explain more of the reasons why, but the spirit body is composed of most of the unresolved emotions and patterns that are arriving into the physical body. So most physical difficulties in the human body, they are first experienced in the spirit body. The spirit body, for me, holds both sides of the family tree inside of it. And then they arrive at different times, and this produces a series of physical symptoms. So for me, all physical symptoms, every form of disease, every form of cancer, heart attack, stroke, every psychological disorder has some correspondence to the spirit body, the etheric energy, the aura, whatever you want to call it. They call it prana, they call it chi. It depends on the culture you're in, but everybody pretty much agrees that we have an energy around us, even if Western science hasn't yet identified the existence of this. It does exist. I can promise you, I've seen it, I've felt it, I've dealt with it. I'm still learning what it means. Theoretically, the possibility is to take the arriving symptoms and in some way merge or collapse them. If you can imagine, it's like being on a teeter-totter where you have your mother and your father's family, and I'll show you another graphic in a moment about how that works, but you take your mother and father's family and they're always circulating up and down and it's pumping action. But in the moment of the equinox, everything is still. Everything is balanced. So in that moment of planetary collective balance, I think that there's an opportunity to collapse the damage inside my spirit body in such a way that it gives my physical body an opportunity to be able to receive the vital forces more smoothly or equally or flowing. So in that moment, it's like being able to breathe again. If you might imagine, all of us carry a bag of rocks. In that moment, we collapse all of the rocks for just a little while and give our physical body a chance to circulate in a natural flowing ability to be able to be in harmony with each other and the world, if only for a moment. Now, it would be ideal if we were practicing to be harmonic in the process of doing this, would be practicing to be able to feel, would be practicing to be responsible, would be practicing to be able to be engaged in this, and that's where the other months or days of the year are useful. So let me show you another graphic about the times of the day. So here is a graphic that shows you the correspondence to the hours of the day, which is also the seasons of the year. And each one of these colors, they represent different parts of the family tree. And they are, if you will, they're vibrational influences. If you look at the bottom coming up, this is the beginning of the day length increasing. You have the 3 months of spring that come into the first 3 months of the winter coming into spring. And the equinox is where the merging of the winter into spring of the grandfathers from the mother's side meet the grandfathers from the father's side. And this is the last 3 months leading up to June, or excuse me, Northern Hemisphere, leading up to summer. And then the summer 3 months leading into the equinox, where this moves into the autumn and returns back through a sequence back to winter. This is a cycle of a year. This also corresponds to not only the times of the day and the seasons, glands, organs, body systems, each one of them corresponding to a different part of the family tree. Now, theoretically, it's possible for us to be able to feel and experience all of these parts of our family tree. Ideally, we would be doing that all year long, which, by the way, we are doing all of this all of the time, whether we know it or not. It's happening in the background. And it's most commonly revealed about how we're reacting. It's also about the triggers in our lives. It's about the emotions. It's about the addictions. It's about the compulsions. All of this is the topography of the genetics of our family tree, strongly influencing us to continue their unfinished business. That's pretty much what our family tree does. It genetically gives us all of their unfinished feelings for us to be able to process, feel, and utilize. Now, theoretically, on the equinox, it gives me an opportunity to stand in the middle of all this and potentially do something extraordinary. I'm going to suggest that you could eventually collapse all these colors down to a single point in your own heart. What does that look or act like? What does that feel like? Well, I have some suggestions for you to try. And that is to take the members of your family tree from your mother's side, acknowledge the members of your family tree for 3 generations, your mother, your mother's parents, and their parents, so your great grandparents. So the 6 of them combined with your mother on that side is a collective feeling of people. Try to remember this is not just about colors or about glands and organs, it's about people. And then you take the other people from your father's side of the family, and that means they have a corresponding your father and his 6 ancestors behind him, your father's parents and their parents, the great grandparents. The goal would be to feel and desire for them to lovingly meet in your own heart. Now, what I mean by that is your mother and your father are not related except through you. Only through you are all these people connected. Your mother's family, for the most part, with many exceptions, I'm sure, your mother's family is not related to your father's family. I know that sounds strange, but only through you. So you are standing right in the fulcrum between both sides of your family tree. And were you to seriously, really, sincerely want to feel yourself and to feel both sides of your family tree simultaneously, it would provide the means and the opportunity to take this unresolved field of energy, move it together, gently or otherwise, and potentially make a remarkable difference in your overall health, happiness, or well-being. This is what I'm doing. Now, in order to be able to facilitate this, it's nice to have a better feeling about what the family tree feels like. So let me give you another graphics or two about the family tree. This is the basic structure of your family tree. The ones in red come from your father's family. We just arbitrarily choose red because it's a more masculine color. The ones in blue come from your mother's family. Mother's family, father's family. Now, what this is the birth order sequence of children that relate to that side of the family. So you can see that the red one relates to father's mother, the blue one, number one, relates to mother's father. We won't go into the significance of the entire birth order system, but the goal is to be able to bring the father's side and the mother's side together and to be able to help consolidate, balance, or in some way resolve the unfinished business in the family tree so that your own physical health will not be as affected by their unresolved emotional issues. Let me show you this in a slightly different graphic. This one seems a little bit more complicated, and it is. All it is the epigenetic line of all of your grandparents and great-grandparents linking down into you. Now, in this model, it's the recognition that all of these are inside you with 12 glands, organs, and body systems. All of these 12 now actually exist in the field around you called your etheric and or spirit body. Now, that holds much of the arriving damage that will cause you some physical difficulty or impairment. All forms of disease of all forms, to me, have an origin in some degree or another in the family tree, or caused by us personally without a family tree issue, to be able to store it in the spirit body and now is fed back to us as a form of emotional or physical experiences. It's a cause-effect relationship. So the family tree function is capable of being able to be moved. Now, I would also like to show you some ways how that might be related to nature. Now, I'm going to jump from family tree to its relationship to nature. Here is a brief reminder: mineral kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom. Around that is the powder blue, the pink, and the white. And for me, that is the characteristic skin of all of this, which is like the skin of the body. It is the composite of the soul's memory. And we are connected to the mineral kingdom in the body. And the mineral kingdom feeds the plant kingdom. The plant kingdom feeds the animal kingdom. So there is a natural circulation of life minerals, plants, animals. There's a natural circulation of the life force. I'm suggesting that it's possible to utilize the planetary forces at the time of the equinox to be able to circulate the life force inside the body in a more living and dynamic way. Let me show you a graphic of what that might look or feel like. I put up this image to remind you that it's about circulation of feeling. And if you could take a feeling like this and create this sense of the desire to feel more and the sincere desire to feel both sides of your family. And it kind of like goes out, but the goal is to actually bring the eventual feeling all in. I'm suggesting that you can bring the mother's family in and the father's family in, and in some way that is yet to be fully determined, you can experiment with what it feels like for yourself. How might you lovingly bring the two halves of your family tree together for your social emotional benefit? And I'd like you to be as clear as possible that I'd like you to consider doing this for yourself, because it's about doing a singular identity with yourself as the central point of both sides of the family tree meeting. Later on, yes, this is going to have a tremendous opportunity to do with your spouse or friends around you. I think globally we can share this. We can do some remarkable things as a collective group doing this all together. But in order for it to be genuinely successful, I have to do it within myself. So the feeling of this picture helps to get the feeling of lucidness, fluidity, if you need to use that, imagination, and to bring them all together. Color. The reason that color is so significant to the process is that the spirit body is primarily composed of different vibrations or frequencies. And these different vibrations, they correspond with different wavelengths that correspond to different colors. The colors from your father's side of the family are the brown, the red, the green, the gold, the autumn orange or yellow, and purple. These are the colors primarily associated with the vibrations from the father's side of the family. The opposite side of this is the powder blue, the green, the yellow green, the pink, the dark blue, the violet white. These are the colors from the mother's side of the family. They're what's called cooler or more yin in some ways. This is the mother's family. This is the father's family. And the goal is to bring them simultaneously together. But remember, they're not just vibrations. They're not just colors. They're actual people. And whether you agree or not, they're still alive. They may not still be in the physical body, but they're very much still alive. In this process, you can feel with great compassion their existence and your own personal desire to be able to help to resolve some of these feelings and to help your physical body rearrange the effects of this in a compassionate and loving way. So let me give you just one last picture for you to consider using. Now, the reason that we use pictures or colors or the imagination is that the area that we're trying to affect initially the most is the area that's associated with the mind. The mind is the bridge between the soul and the body. The mind can have all kinds of constricted memories or deposits of the analytical functions of the mind or the reactive emotional functions of the mind. The mind is primarily a specific domain. And one of the things that it responds to is imagery. Now, you know, and I know that sometimes we watch movies, we know they're not true. They're a fantasy, they're about the past. We know they're just actors, but somehow our reaction to the sights of it and the sounds of it, if it weren't for the pictures, we wouldn't have such deep, triggered emotional reactions. We know they're not true, but our mind is processing the imagery in such a way that it produces a neurological change in us. Wide-ranging feelings can come out of this: fear, anger, sadness, grief. We've all been through watching a tearful movie or a frightful movie, and we respond. So utilizing the same principle, the use of imagery helps us to be able to consolidate the feelings in our spirit body into one location. In this graphic, this is a graphic of a man and a woman sitting below a tree. The man is sitting in the winter side of the tree, and his function is what's called primarily the future. He's circulating the desire to grow in some direction, and it's taken over to the feminine side of the father's family, and the red and the girl at the bottom of the tree, this corresponds to the grandmothers on the father's side. On the mother's side, it's the grandfathers. On the father's side, it's the grandmothers. And these are the ones that hold the system together. So I'm suggesting that you, like them, you stand where they have their back. You feel both sides of your family tree, your father's side, your mother's side. Just use your feelings if you want, or you can use the colors if you want to practice them, or just the feeling that you'd like to be able to consolidate, feel, merge, whatever it is, the adjective is that you want to describe, the adverb of it, how you want it to get it to move. Take your time with it and explore it. So I suggest that you start to train yourself now, a few hours ahead, and to be able to learn to distinguish the colors or the feelings from both sides of your family tree. It doesn't matter whether you ever knew them or not. Just do your best to feel them as people and to be able to bring that to attention, and then go and determine the exact minute of the equinox in your particular location, because it has a time-based variable all over the world at different 24-hour focus. It will happen exactly at 1 minute wherever you are. And if you have any trouble finding that, you can look at a place called timeanddate.com, and they'll help you be able to locate your location and the exact time of the equinox for you. So at the moment of the equinox, practice whatever you feel is appropriate to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. You might orient your sincerity, your own desire, your intention, your motives, whatever is important to you. If it's only just a sense of feeling or compassion or some attitude of faith or prayer in that moment, for whatever your own social or theological views might be, just bring it together for a moment and feel it. Then consider the possibility that for the next 6 months, you practice a little more than you have before. And then that's where we'll get into describing the cycles and seasons of the week or the month or the season, and how we build up this focus of being able to create the circulation over several months, and we meet in 6 more months at the next equinox. We practice feeling that. And we're going to invite you to be part of a global program where people all over the world are simultaneously doing the same basic exercise that you are for the development of the openness to change and grow into a healthier, more beautiful, more prosperous, more unified globe. The goal is to use this very specific time that we have, not just with the equinox, but with this time on the earth where in the last few months, particularly about the last 9 months, we have been in some degree or another unified by a global pandemic where all of us are experiencing something pretty much at the same time. It's affected our families, our communities, our countries, our income, our sense of well-being. Lots of major things are going on around us. So this is the first time that we've had a equinox in the middle of a pandemic. So the opportunity to use both of them together to achieve a unusual outcome, to me, is theoretically available. And when we come out the other side of this, we can share our experiences and either be brothers and sisters in a deeper way in one earthly family, or we go our other directions and see what comes next. So the best to all of you. I'll see you soon.